We're recording. All right, thanks guys for being here on which is now I think our third or fourth One Life Thrive Mastery Monday call, and today is a special guest because someone who has a very a very close perspective to the whole thing that's been going on, and we've talked a little bit about entrepreneurship in the past. We've talked a little about finances. And today, I think we're going to really dig into maybe wellness and see where that goes. And we're here with Dr. Jaime Hope, who has been on the front lines for the last several weeks, working as an ER physician in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. And she's someone who is, what I love about it is she's not just a doctor, right? But not only is she fighting on that front, but she's also someone who is very cut from the One Life cloth. And she's very, she's a speaker and presenter, and she's presented at a lot of events in the One Life, universe. And she's someone who very much gets our vibe and gets the One Life creed. And so I think being able to pair those two perspectives will be really great today. So Jaime, thanks for hanging out with us.
Awesome. Hector, Tim, thank you guys so much for having me here. It is an honor to be here. And as I mentioned before we started this call, I'm going into a shift today. So I'll be doing kind of a later shift. So it's nice to get to connect with people before I will be behind a mask for several hours.
Wow. Jaime, why don't you, I know Tim's likes to start off these calls with, what you're seeing and what your perspective. And if you could kind of give us, where your head's at or what you're thinking about. Or I know you said you have a daughter who you're going through this as a parent as well. That was actually our call last week, was parenting. And so I'd love for you to give us, your thoughts or your reflections or your perspective on this whole thing that's ensued over the last several weeks.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm an ER doctor, which I have been for the last 14 years. And I serve a community just outside of Detroit, Michigan, which, as you know, we're one of the busiest level 1 trauma centers in the country. And as you can imagine, Detroit, it's an interesting place, but it's home and I love it. So Michigan right now, particularly Southeast Michigan, Detroit, and my hospital are one of the rising hotspots in the country for COVID infections. So following Washington and New York, we've had a substantial increase like they have had in those areas. So I'm seeing so much of this. Somebody comes in, they fell and broke their hip and didn't have any respiratory signs, and we get a chest x-ray, and the chest x-ray looks like COVID. It's everywhere right now in this area. What we're seeing is so interesting though. Having worked at one of the busiest level 1 trauma centers in the country for so many years, we're actually seeing a ton less patients right now than usual, way less. And that's consistent with hospitals across the country. The volumes are way down. And the reason is some people are afraid to go to the hospital. Even if they do have an injury, even if they do have severe belly pain, chest pain, weakness that would be consistent with a stroke, people are waiting and delaying getting care because they're afraid of getting COVID. So we're actually seeing less people, but the people that we are seeing are very, very sick. So it's an interesting trend. In my career, I've gone through, the prior SARS epidemic, the MERS, the Ebola, which I would call more of a drama than an actual scare. I was working during that, the H1N1, all of those things, but we've never seen anything like this.
Tim, I know you've got a list of questions for Jaime. You want to jump into those, and we can also take some questions from the people who are on live?
Sure. I think that the biggest question is, if you're listening to this call either live or on the recording, what's the biggest thing that we need to know now? What should we be doing as a community?
And that's a great question. And so it's really important to feel empowered, because there's this level of, fear. If you're not afraid enough, people aren't prepared and they're out doing crazy things like large group gatherings and not protecting themselves. But we don't want people to be so afraid that they're paralyzed and don't know what to do. There are actually plenty of things that you can do as an individual and as a family to help protect yourself, your loved ones, your community, and the whole world. So first, it's understanding how this virus is transmitted. Like any viruses, I know people are afraid to touch things. COVID doesn't soak through your skin and your hands. It's not the surface that you touched and getting through your hands, it's getting it. It's because what happens is You touch something, and then we touch our eyes, we touch our nose. I'm not going to demonstrate that one, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And we touch our mouth. And people don't realize how often they do it. And that's the way that I know everybody's, as I just touch my face to get my hair out of my face. We don't realize how often we're doing it. And that's why these viruses are so easily transmissible. Now, there's been this big debate whether it's airborne or droplet. And the difference is how far it can spread. Because airborne, it can spread farther on smaller particles of moisture, and on droplet, it can't go as far. Now, as a droplet virus, that means, so if somebody sneezes, do you guys remember that famous scene from the movie Outbreak where someone sneezes in a theater and you see that, you actually get to see it, kind of that horrific thing. I think it's terrified us now until the end of time. But with a sneeze or cough or talking, we expect those droplets to go about 6 feet before the weight of the droplets and gravity cause them to fall to the ground or any nearby surface. So it's not that we're walking through this constant cloud of COVID in the air. You're actually much less likely to get it that way if you're staying the appropriate distance from other people. And typically, if somebody's in a store and they're not terribly sick, they have a lower viral load. And that means how much of the virus is in your body, and the more that you have, the more you can spread to others. Now, the patients I'm seeing on the front line who are very, very sick and they're coughing and struggling to breathe, they have a high viral load and we're in a hospital room. So that whole room is coated in it and all the people, which is why it's so important for us to have properly protecting equipment. All of those things, the PPE that you're hearing about. But if you're walking to a grocery store and somebody 12 feet away from you sneezes, you're not swimming in a bath of this. Now, I wouldn't encourage you to go give them a hug, of course. It's still okay to say bless you. But now the CDC is recommending that everybody wear a mask in public. And it's not the droplets per se that we're worried about. It's what happens. So you pick something up at the grocery store, you itch your nose. It's the touching thing. So wearing a mask actually helps. One of the secondary benefits is it helps prevent you from touching your face. So the very easy, straightforward things that you can do right now are wash your hands every time you touch something from outside of your house. Try to stop touching your face. Listen, I get it. That's harder than you think. And then wearing a mask and even eye protection as a great reminder to help you not touch your face. And one more comment before we kind of go into the broader ways of how you can maintain your health and things like that. I really think that they missed the mark when they chose the phrase social distancing. We need to be physically distancing, but we need to stay more socially connected than ever. In stressful and scary times when people are feeling isolated, those are the ways that things like depression and anxiety increase. People who are struggling with addiction, PTSD, and all of those conditions prior to going into this, to be isolated and alone is the last thing we need. It's safe physical distancing. But if I could do something so important, I encourage you guys to stay more connected than ever.
Very wise. Yeah. So I like that.
I think Jeff Hoffman echoed that same thing with social distancing, and that there's a lot more effects than just health. I think someone in our community posted a post that said, if someone's picking up home improvement supplies, casting judgment on them because they're out, shopping without knowing their full background or their mental health situation, or just there's so many other factors that go into this that being around people kind of quells those and helps and assuages some of those reactions. So,
and if somebody is at a store that is legally and appropriately open purchasing things, that's okay. Maybe they need that distraction or that purpose or that sense of something to do. Maybe they're helping repair something in their home. You don't know their story. We can't walk a mile in anyone's shoes because we can't get close enough right now. But just practice emotional kindness toward the other person because you don't know what they're going through. So it's really important to have that group compassion as well as that compassion for self.
I'd love for you, Jaime, you mentioned it a little bit, to talk about, preventative measures and ways that people can stay safe if they're, maybe not dealing with it quite yet, or it hasn't, not in an area where it's prominent yet. What are some things that they could be doing to take action and be proactive about it?
Yes. So in addition to the spread prevention measures that we talked about, the physical distancing, the hand washing, don't touch your face, wearing a mask in public, those kind of things, and particularly avoiding the more vulnerable populations, older people, people with chronic health conditions, pregnant people, very young children. And we're seeing a trend where children aren't getting as sick, but that applies to a little bit older children. So now's not the time to visit somebody's newborn. So those type of things. But it's also really important to take care of ourselves in general. And that's what gives you the best chance in order to prevent from getting this virus. If you do get the virus, that you'll have a better chance of surviving it. And then after we address this question, I can even talk about the different stages in terms of what to do if you get it and when you should go to a hospital and all those things. But focusing on staying healthy, one of my day jobs prior to this whole thing, as Hector mentioned, I am an emergency medicine physician, and that's my main job. But for so many years I worked there, and I'm often seeing people on the worst day of their life. And so I've dedicated a substantial amount of my career outside of emergency medicine to helping prevent people from getting there in the first place. And the same principles can apply during the COVID pandemic. And that's really focusing on your health. So if you look at your health like a table, so a four-legged table, and everything that you love, everything that you hold dear in the world is piled on top of that table. Your hopes, your dreams, your families, your loved ones, your health, and everything. And it's supported by the pillars of your health. So that would be energizing exercise, nourishing food, restorative sleep, and stress release. Now, if you start ignoring one of these pillars, imagine what that's going to do to that table. It's going to get wobbly. And remember, this table is holding up everything that's important to you. And so what you can do during the time of the pandemic is look at how you're doing with your pillars. Nourishing food. Now, I learned 4 ways to look at food from Michael Burnoff of the Average Sex Community. He is such a great guy. And I actually simplified it to 2 things. So there are 2 ways that you can look at food. And this is coming from a doctor who is very focused on health. Food is either nourishing or entertaining. Period. And it's pretty easy to tell which one is which. Broccoli, that's nourishing. Cheetos, that's entertainment food. So if you're looking at your ratio, and that's why I help people. We have so much guilt and emotion and negative things associated with food. We call it cheat days and sinful brownies, and I'm so bad, I ate a cookie. I'm like, okay, settle down. You didn't murder anyone. You just ate a cookie. So I'm like, if guilt and shame burned calories, we'd all be skinny. So instead of focusing on the guilt and shame, I say, look at your ratio of your nourishing to entertainment food. And if your ratio is at least 70% nourishing to 30% entertaining or better, then that's getting you toward the health. I tend to try and push people along toward maybe a 90 or 95% nourishing. But then when you do have your entertainment food, you're still staying within your healthy ratio and enjoying it. So it's just a little brief of the nourishing food pillar. Now remember, there's 4. So energizing exercise. That's another really important pillar. Now, if you've never exercised before, don't try running a marathon tomorrow, because over-exercising, particularly when you're not used to it, can lead to injury, and extreme exercise can actually decrease your immune system. But energizing exercise improves and boosts your immune system and make you less likely to get sick and much better to recover if you do get sick. So that part is extremely important. The cool thing about that is that there are so many companies giving away their exercise videos for free. You don't have to have equipment. If you've never done it before, you can learn how to do body weight exercise at home. There are plenty of couch to 5K apps, walking apps. There are even online group exercises that you can do, so you can keep that social and group aspect of the exercise along with what you're doing. So energizing exercise. Restorative sleep. Ooh, who out there is struggling with sleep right now, right? It's hard when we're stressed, but it's really important that we're giving our body that time to rest. During sleep is the time our body is repairing. I like to think of it as a busy office building, back when we used to be able to work in a busy office building, of course. At the end of the day, when everybody's done doing all their work and leaves the office building, the cleaning crew comes in, fixes everything, cleans it up, and gets it healthy and ready for the next day. If you deprive your body of sleep, you're not having an opportunity to consolidate memory, heal, rest, and be ready for the next day. Getting inadequate sleep can actually decrease your immune system, and it can decrease your functional IQ points to the point where you miss too many hours of sleep. And it's kind of similar to being drunk, and you don't want to be making important decisions under those circumstances. So we can talk about some tricks in the sleep pillar, kind of depending on how much time we have on this call, but it's really important to allow your body to rest. And then the fourth leg of this table that is holding up everything you hold dear is stress release. And if there's more than one right answer, it means there's no one right answer. So some people can sit still and meditate for hours and they find that relaxing. Some people have crazy wild dance parties with their children and giggle and laugh. That happens to be one of my favorites. Petting their pets, going for walks, getting outside in nature. There are lots of different ways for stress relief. And this includes social connection, so we don't feel isolated and alone. So if you, during this pandemic and beyond, can look at your table and see where you need help on in terms of your pillars, you can help start turning your goals into habits towards a long-term healthier lifestyle that will sustain you through this pandemic and well beyond.
Fantastic stuff. I like the analogy of the four, and I know Tim put it down there, the table, right? And it's, I had always talked about the three, but the stress release, I think, is one that I had not factored into playing a part on.
Yes. In short term, stress gives us that fight or flight feeling, that kind of racing heart, the adrenaline, things like that. But long term, it changes your cortisol system. It actually changes your blood pressure, your immune system, and can decrease your immune strength. And that's why it's so important to manage and mitigate stress. There's no such thing as a stress-free life. We can't always stop the stressors from coming in to the world, but where we are empowered is how we deal with releasing that stress in a way that keeps our body healthy and strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're amazing, Jaime, and everything you do as an ER doctor, busy mom, and boy, I don't think I've ever seen you stressed. And man,
I've been stressed, but I think it helps that I've always worked. I mean, for most of my adult life, I spent my 20s with my nose in a book. I started college when I was 17, went straight through medical school, into residency, and working in such a high stress, high stakes environment like I do. There was a point where I was near, rock bottom in terms of stress, burnout. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was, bleeding so much to help others. I forgot to remember that I can do a better job taking care of other people if I take care of myself. So I looked at my practices, and that's how I learned all of these skills, because I learned it by messing it up and then getting it right.
So how do you do that? How do you find time for you? When do you do it, and what does it look like?
It depends on the day, and that makes a big difference. Every single day doesn't have to be perfect. I look at my health and my health plan over the course of a week or a month. So for instance, today, this morning, my shift starts at 2 p.m. So I had the morning to get stuff done, laundry, homeschooling the kids, try and exercise, eat healthy, pack my food. Now we have to very carefully consider what kind of food we pack at work. I used to bring all kinds of healthy food and finger vegetables and stuff. Now we're trying and bring stuff that we don't have to touch in order to eat it. So, we're adjusting, but it's all about looking at that. So if I look at my week, I know how many shifts I'm working. I know when I'm going to get my amazing quality time with my kids and family, and then when I can put in exercise. And I take that as seriously as any meeting like this that I schedule. Because like I said, we can't help, it's that really old analogy about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. I'm a better mom, better coworker, partner, spouse, like all of those things if I have had my stress relief. And so just working that out. Honestly, the best thing I did in terms of time was incorporate my kids into my exercise. So they have so much energy. It's, they're making me look bad.
Yeah.
They're 6 and 8. And so as part of their homeschooling, we have exercise time every day, and we set up silly stations, and we're doing high intensity interval training. I'm lifting weights. They're, lifting stuffies, but we're doing fun stuff. So I'm getting quality time and that social connection of doing fun and silly with my kids. And we're getting in some pretty amazing shape here.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Hey, Tim, I'd like to invite Donnie if he's willing, since you're here and you got your video on and your beautiful goatee coming in. Do you want to share with Jamie your question and maybe however much of what you have going on? I know you have a family and a business and the whole thing, so you want to share a little bit?
Yeah. So just quick bullet point where I'm at, and the reason why I asked this question is I run a business, so there's that. I'm in a relationship that I am navigating to transform into a better relationship. I am facing custody battles with my daughter. I moved in with my parents to help take care of my family. My dad was just had a stroke and has minor brain issues going on and is in a facility, and we haven't been able to see him. I have financial troubles that I've caused over the last 4 years of financial habits. And I have this mentality of just work harder and make more money and it'll take care of itself. And I've been on the cycle of burnout and I'm tired of it. And I just want to do it differently. So like when you transition from burnout to what I just typed in, a more balance, whatever you want to call it, like where you're at now, how long was that transition? And like, what can I expect to face and what decisions can I expect to make and changes? What do I need to release and let go of? And what do I need to bring more into my life?
Nice. Oh, great question. And I love your dog there too, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So you used the right word, which was habits. So all of us, myself included, have some things that we're doing that are habits. We might not realize it, but they're not necessarily serving us. Now, grinding yourself into a pulp to make more money that way is probably not going to serve you well if you're too exhausted to take care of all those other things in your life, the custody battle, relationship, and your health, your family, and all of those things. So as the expression goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is today. So Donnie, what I would invite you to do is look at your health practices in various areas, including, money, finance, time allocation. Because a lot of us have a lot of time where we're busy, but maybe aren't doing the most important things. So in your business, what are the things that serve the people that you're serving, make money, and help the business grow in a positive way? And any tasks that you're doing that don't fit under those type of headings, do you really need to be doing them? And it's the same thing with your health practices. If you're looking at nourishing food, keep track of your ratio. If you want to be 70-30 or better, keep track of what you're eating. What is measured improves, and what is measured and recorded improves exponentially. So look at all of these areas of your life as, different kind of to-do lists and things that you can do. And Donnie, are you familiar with SMARTer goals? You guys have heard that acronym before?
And I've heard the ER once or twice, but I couldn't teach
it. That's okay. I teach it. So, but I want to make sure that people have heard it. So under all of those categories, now you've got your business, how you're serving your customers, how you're making sure you're getting your finance, your nourishing food, your energizing exercise. You pick one specific goal. So let's just use exercise for an example, because it's a really easy to help run through this sheet. So people will come to me and say, okay, my specific goal is to lose 20 pounds. That is not a goal, that's a result. That's not something you can do. When you're talking about something specific, it's an action thing that you personally can do. So if exercise is your goal to become a healthier person, you can exercise on average 3 times a week over the course of a year. So that's 156 times where you're exercising. So I have a grid on my wall with 156 blank boxes, and every time I exercise, I put the date and a thing about what I did.
Wait, really?
Yes, it's that easy. It's right on my wall. And then it's really fun if I crush that goal. There was a year that I hurt my back and I almost barely made it. But as a healthy person, I had to realize if you blow out a disc in your back, you need to stop running and let yourself heal. Don't be stupid. Don't overdo it. So And so that's, that's the specific. The M for motivation. And I think that's really important. How many of you guys, on this call and in the world have ever made a New Year's resolution that you didn't stick to? Right? Okay. Anyone who's not raising your hand, I call you out. Yep. I've absolutely done it. What happened was you weren't making a goal, you were making a wish. Like, I wish to lose weight, or I wish to quit smoking, or get organized, or do better in my business, that kind of thing. And that's what Zig Ziglar has said for years. He's one of my favorite motivational speakers. I just absolutely adore him. So when you're looking at the goal that you set, you have to be really connected with why. Why do you want to do that particular thing? Because if you don't have a strong why, the first obstacle you come up against, like, I'm a little tired, or there's something good on Netflix, you're going to drop your goal and go back into the old habit. So when I do this with people who are trying to improve their health, I say list 12 things, 12 reasons why you want to do this. And the first couple they give me are generally predictable, especially when you're talking to a doctor. Yes, doctor, I want to do this to improve my blood pressure, improve my cholesterol, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, if those things actually motivated anybody, we'd all be healthy. But as you have to come up with more and more answers, we start to get to the truth. And it looks something like, I had a patient tell me that he got on an airplane once and he had to ask the flight attendant for a seatbelt extender to fit over his belly. And in that moment, he realized he never wanted to feel like that again. It's somebody who was so winded they couldn't play with their kids and they felt embarrassed in front of the other parents. It doesn't always have to be a negative thing, but it's that deep emotional thing inside of us that makes us want to continue this goal. Because I tell you, motivation is fleeting, right? So this motivation, this real why, is the thing that sustains you long past the confetti of the Happy New Year's has been swept up. So with each of those goals, and they'll be different. So Donnie, why you want to serve your customers really well in your business might be a different why than why you want to take care of your health and have a good relationship with your former partner so you can still continue to co-parent your daughter. Those whys will each be different. And that's why it's important to recognize those for each one separately. So, and the A is for action. So what can you specifically do? The who, what, when, where, why. So for exercise, I am going to exercise, looking at my schedule, I'm going to plot out my exercise on my calendar so I get X number of days per week and per month. This day I'm going to watch a free, YouTube video. This day I'm going to go outside. This day I'm going to do a dance party with my kids, and get as specific as possible. And this is all things that you can do. Now R is for record, of course, as we talked about, measured. There's apps for that. When I do goals for my kids, I print it out on paper and laminate it. Somebody got me a laminator for Christmas. I may or may not have gotten a little crazy with laminating stuff at the house, but all of our goals are laminated and up on the wall so we can see them all the time and record them. There's something really satisfying about checking something off, isn't there? A T is for timetable. So you want it to be a realistic goal, but not so easy. So if your goal is to do 2 sit-ups this year, you're probably going to achieve that. If your goal is to do 2,000 sit-ups a day and you haven't done that, it might be a little bit too much. So you want it to be ambitious, but grounded. And if you find, so that, the E after this, or T, and then this is the ER, the smarter, that the goal might need to evolve. You might find that it's too easy or too unrealistic. So we have to be kind to ourselves and allow it to evolve based on the current situation. Certainly my goal of going to the gym as a specific part of my exercise regimen a certain number of times per week has evolved since it's closed down due to this whole pandemic thing you probably heard about. And then the last thing is, so that R is reward. What is an appropriate reward for what you have achieved? Because when you gamify something, when you make it fun, when you get to achieve something to get to the next level. Now, if somebody's doing a food goal, I don't encourage you to reward yourself with donuts, but maybe reward yourself with, some online shopping or a walk outside. So the reward should be fun and something that you're excited and interested in getting. And you can use this process for any of the goals you're trying to achieve. You just want to look at each goal separate and make sure that you are, getting all of the steps that you want, especially really deeply connected with the why. You are going to continue to do this even when it gets a little bit hard.
Love it. I had never heard those before, so I'm sure that there are others on the call who that was new valuable info as well. One quick question that came in from Joe Price, Jamie, was, can I allow my significant other who doesn't live with me into my home? Are hugs permitted? And I think maybe a funny question, but I think a very serious one that I think a lot of people are unsure about what's the actual recommendation.
I totally get it. How many of our, how can we hug our family members? Who can we allow in? There's a risk benefit with this, and everything in this is not black and white. So they're saying limit yourself to household contacts, but not all of us live with our significant other. And so certainly if they're symptomatic or if you're symptomatic, of course, I would recommend against that. Now, we do know that 81% of people who get the coronavirus are going to be asymptomatic, meaning no symptoms, or very mild symptoms. So look for even minor stuff, a sniffle, a little bit of a cough, which of course is a little difficult for those of us who are currently going into allergy season. But assuming no symptoms, and then, safest practices, of course, would be stay still a physical distance away from each other, not hug. But at the same time, you have to recognize relationships are so important. And if you want to weather this together, that's okay too. So it's that connection and stuff we still need. So certainly if they're a high risk person with illnesses or things like that, I would stay away. And then for those of us who are healthy, certainly we don't want to be spreading around the whole population, but by getting to connect with somebody you love, that sounds pretty important.
Yeah. Great perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's important more than ever with like families trying to like divorced families. How do you bring the kids back and forth and stuff like that? There's just a lot of really tough things people are dealing with like that right now.
Yes. And practice kindness for yourself and for each other, even people who are divorced and co-parenting. Maybe you've got a lot of history and maybe some of it's negative, but you're in this together, raising those little humans, and we're all navigating a stressful time. So this is that time, whatever form of stress release works best for you, so you can go into these encounters in a more positive way.
Yeah. So Jamie, I have a question. So as we ease back into our former lives, what's that going to look like? How it's going to be what's that look like in your view? How can we?
It's going to be different. I mean, I think this is going to fundamentally change so many things. It is fundamentally changing medicine right now. And it's the rise of the telehealth. It's always been there. It's going to continue to be there. But now people realize you can access care in different ways. I think we will realize, there's a lot of good coming out of this. We hear a lot of doom and gloom, but I think we're also kind of realizing what's really important. What do things strip down to when everything else is taken away? What really matters? So the people who are using this time wisely, and I'm not saying you have to spend every second of this thing, learning calculus, learning 3 new languages, and scrubbing your garage by hand. But those who are allowing this time to create new healthy habits, healthy, not just in terms of your physical health, but your emotional health, your financial health, your family and social health by staying connected, we'll see that if you can do these kind of things during one of the most stressful times we can imagine, think of how strong you're going to be going forward. We get to use these habits, and now it's going to be like, I survived the pandemic. This little setback is no big deal because we're giving ourselves the skills and fortitude going forward. Now, I wonder how social interaction are going to change, because right now, if you're outside, people are kind of looking at each other a little suspiciously. We're waving at our neighbors from across the road, and heaven forbid you're outside and someone sneezes. Before it used to be bless you. Now it's like, oh, get out of here. What are you doing? But I still think that we've been gathering as humans since the beginning of time with our families and with our loved ones over a meal and hugging. And I think that when it's safe to do so, I just can't imagine that going away.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to see. How do we bring, ease different industries back in and
Yes.
have community gatherings? And I look at it from different entities' points of view, like a musician and trying to have concerts and ball players and trying to sports and stuff like that. Man, it's just kind of tough to see what's it going to be like, you
You know,
know.
we've experienced somewhat similar things in terms of those fears with the terrorist attacks of 9/11, with mass shootings that have occurred in various places, people, you know, at concerts and sporting events, and people wondered, is it safe to get back together? And people did still continue to gather. Now there's more of a personal risk from the person next to you, not a larger threat from the outside. So it's a different level of fear. But I mean, they've been gathering in stone-made arenas since the beginning of time. So I think we'll have to find a new normal. And you know what? If the person next to you at the concert is wearing a mask and gloves, don't judge them. They want to be there and be a part of it. And maybe they're still a little bit scared, and that's okay too.
Yeah, makes sense.
Beautiful. I would love for one thing that you kind of touched on a little bit was, you know, what's next and what you're excited about. So I'm curious, and maybe you can share as much as you like about what you are personally looking forward to, or what silver linings you or your family have found throughout, you know, the last several weeks.
You know, this one of the silver linings is this has really given us an opportunity to be creative in terms of how we connect. My dad's very first Zoom call ever was when we celebrated his birthday on March 20th. So we're like, Dad, welcome to technology. Here we go. But coming up with fun ideas and challenges for each other. And then even walking around neighborhoods and seeing, you know, people writing messages of encouragement in chalk. I was on my run and somebody had chalked a huge hopscotch board across the road. So of course I had to hopscotch across that. So the things coming out of this are the adaptability and can absolutely go forward through any of this. And I think some of the ways that we're changing medicine, you know, in emergency medicine, we would certainly see plenty of things that weren't necessarily classified as emergencies that people would come in for. And so people really understanding how to utilize the healthcare system and not to be afraid. Right now, certainly if you have a health emergency, please come in. We can take care of you. We want to take care of you. We will keep you safe. We want to make sure that everybody is getting the care they need. So there are things that will die because of this. And I'm not talking about just people. Old ideas, habits, practices. Some businesses will struggle and suffer. And so it's what can be reborn out of the craziness of these times that will be strong and resilient enough to go forward. And we need to help those who are struggling with the deaths, with the death of their loved one, who they weren't allowed to be there, with the death of their business, with old habits, with changes, with loss of relationships. It's okay to mourn these things. It's a normal part of the human experience, and we need to allow ourselves to grieve. And then what are the steps can we do and go forward and share best practices with each other? I mean, Donnie, right now, these are unprecedented times where you can get business education online from the world's leading experts. So whatever your industry and your business, this is a great opportunity for you to learn best practices because people are sharing and giving more than ever. So let's take advantage of it and continue that beautiful collaboration going forward.
Yeah, lots of room for creativity. And what's interesting is as you, you know, listen to all of these calls with our One Life guides, Hoffman talked about telemedicine.
Amazing.
And just, you know, some of the running themes that are coming up. I'd like to invite Carrie Smolinski on. He is our resident events coordinator coordinator. He's does all of the tech for One Life events in years past. So I'd love to invite him on, and he has a question about timelines and stuff like that. Carrie, are you? Yeah, you're ready.
All right. I'm loving the facial hair situation you got going on now.
That's what I told him.
I love
that was
it.
the first thing I said.
Coronavirus temporary thing, maybe. I'm not quite
sure. All the medical people have had to shave. Our hospital and many hospitals have mandated a rule that people have to shave, but there's specific guidelines, and I've seen some creative facial hair situations going on. So I love it.
You can't see it with the mask, so you know.
Exactly.
Question for you, because you know, aside from all the events that we do locally, nationally, and globally, there's now obviously different protocols with different countries. There's protocols in different states. And what we've been seeing is everything is being postponed, but people are postponing as early as July and August. And, you know, it's interesting. I'm just curious from From a medical standpoint, obviously it's going to be before there's a vaccine. And yes, I'm sure people are going to be doing temperature control and taking temperatures and wearing masks. But what do you really see as a time frame when people in general, or it'll be safer to go out? And that's taking consideration the curve and taking consideration people's comfort level. But what's your take on it, Jenny?
You know, I wonder if the summer is going to be too soon. You know, we're going to see the second, as we start to loosen social distancing, we're going to see another rise. And so as long as we do it carefully, we can still keep everybody under the curve and take care of everybody. And so I think there's going to be two different groups of people. The people that can't wait to just get out, that are feeling so holed up, like, I will go to the first concert that's legal, I can't wait to get there. And then the people who are fearful. So I think this year it's going to be a little bit spotty in terms of how those go. Now, typically, I mean, Carrie, your event, the Passion Summit, it's amazing. There's tons of people. Everybody feels so connected and warm and wonderful there. And so I think it's going to take a little bit of time for events like that to get comfortable. And particularly as we go into the fall and see the rise of the next round of this during the respiratory season. But as we start to manage this longer over time, we're going to see when it's safe. I mean, we've had influenza rise every year. It's a thing. We had the H1N1 year that really didn't substantially impact the conference and concert business. So this one, the same thing. We're going to have that level of confusion, I think, for some time, but they'll come back. I mean, there's some of my favorite things. I've personally been at some of your events, and you're just a master. I think this summer will still be in that state of confusion.
I appreciate it. And that's why we're doing the Passion Summit virtual, less than a month.
Which is, I mean, the groups that, like you, that have been able to pivot and still create an event where people can get amazing content and feel connected and stuff like that. That's the good things that are coming out of this. We don't have to end everything. So far, I've attended a live comedy show virtually and a live concert, and they were awesome. It's not the same, but it still feels so good to stay connected like that.
I appreciate all the time that you give to all the podcasts and all the webinars and all the Zoom calls, and such a great community we're in right now. So appreciate you and everyone else.
Thank you. It's an honor to be part of this.
I'd love, we're coming up on the end here, and we mentioned that she is heading to a shift in a little bit. So we have a hard cut at the end of this. So I'd encourage you guys to throw any questions down, or if you guys want to turn on your mic or your video and come on and hop on the couch, the virtual couch, if you will, and talk with the doctor. We'd encourage you guys to do that as well.
I've got a question for you, Jamie. In what you're seeing, Jeff Hoffman talked about redeploy, retool, repurpose. And what do you, yeah. And that's One Lifers all about, adjusting and adapting. What do you see, in being in the front lines where there may be some opportunities? A good example is Felicia Keith Jones going from making the booze to hand sanitizer.
Oh, I absolutely love her. And not only did she did that, as soon as she learned the process, she started teaching it to other people, to other countries. So everybody would have the tools that they need to do that. She's such an amazing human being.
Yeah. So I just think it's time for a new emerging, almost like a new society to emerge from this. And we can make it better, or we could really screw it up. and I think one of the questions, and I wrote in there, is economy, versus safety. And I think that's just so hard to balance. And that's why having somebody like you who can give us, you get both of these, and you get the importance of both, and how mental health is tied into the economy. And if if your world get rocked, you're going to think different. Especially, there's so many in our world who put their identity on their ability to earn, and that's their primary way of seeing themselves. And when that gets taken from you, it affects you. So.
This virus and viruses in particular are brilliant at shifting and changing for the conditions to stay alive. And we could take a lesson out of that book. Because so if your identity is wrapped up in the particular business you have or a specific amount of money, what if you take and wrap up your identity? Because one of the big things is I talk about is mindset and self-label that we give ourselves. What if that's more focused on how you can be adaptable, how you can learn from others? I mean, I have no problem with dignity in terms of learning. That's one of the best things we learn in medical education. What I learned 10 years ago, we're not even doing anymore. So I'm reading constant updates about how we're treating COVID, and it's changing. It's not that we're an idiot because we were doing something 10 days ago. That's the best we knew 10 days ago. What do we know now? And so it doesn't have to be about that ego. If you need to learn about how you can shift your business to these type of times, there are brilliant people out there who are teaching you this right now. So my identity, fortunately, is very solidly rooted in being adaptable and being willing to learn. And so if right now is the time for that type of mindset, instead of saying my identity is this number of dollars, that's not going to serve, and that you don't have control over that right now, but you absolutely have full control over your adaptability, your willingness to learn and shift and change as all of this changes. And then so right now we're in the giving economy. All people who have the means are giving content away for free. It's scarce for some people who don't have jobs right now. And there's legitimate concerns. People aren't making enough money. I'm trying to encourage people to be healthy, and they're like, I'm about to be booted out on the street. So they're coming up, learn all the different ways that you can get support. You can get loans, you can get, rent deferment, things like that. There are tons of resources out there to help keep you. And then after this, then we're going to see the boom of the rebound economy. Listen, there's a lot of people that can't wait to go get just something as simple as their hair and nails done and massages. Those businesses will come back. They're absolutely going to come back. We will still want those things. We will still need those things. So it's riding the wave of that. And how can you keep yourself as healthy and sane as possible as that's going on?
Yeah. When you say that, the one thing that comes to mind, especially from those that have just been, slugged, is ask. It's okay to ask. There are people out there wanting to help, and this is a time for love and compassion. And I got a call from Dr. Jeremy Mathis the other day. Hey, I'm just calling a homie every day, and it was like, you know what? And I do this anyway, but it was like, who can I reach out to that most needs a call right now?
Yes, reach out to the people who live alone, who have lost a loved one. Reach out to your strong friends. I tell you, they're struggling too.
Yeah. Yep. So Hector, do we have any other questions, or do you have any yourself?
I just want to say there's some comments of gratitude that came in from Carrie and Rochelle. She said, thanks so much for sharing your brilliance. Appreciate you and what you do for our community. And I think that goes from all of us. And I want to honor and take a moment to honor everybody on the call and everybody who's made it thus far on the recording for taking the I think the more difficult approach in this pandemic, which is to work on yourself and to use this as an opportunity to improve and get better. And so it's people like you who make the One Life community so rich and so valuable. So if there's any questions that came in, I'd love for you guys to share them. I do want to take a quick moment, and maybe we can get you out of here a few minutes early, Jamie, if you need to. But and just share for those of you guys who are on the call how you guys might be able to help One Life during this time. And that's the first thing is just sharing One Life with your friends and family, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook group or having them come on one of these calls. I think that right now there are people who need some support and some guidance. And obviously One Life is, where a lot of us have been able to find that. We have something called the Contributor Club, which is a group of monthly supporters who also get calls with high-level coaches on the level of Dr. Jaime Hope. I don't know if she's one of our Contributor Club coaches. Maybe we'll have to wrangle her in. But people get calls with people like David Osborne and Tim's personal coaches, Phil Towle and Janai Lane, and all these people who can really help in different areas. And you can also start a fundraiser or just sponsor some of the programs that we have. So I wanted to take a quick moment there a lot of people ask, how can I help with One Life? And there's three very simple and easy ways there.
And I'm part of the crew helping bring One Life to Detroit. And we, like a lot of places, absolutely need it. And I'm ecstatic to be a part of that.
Well, we thank you for that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as we move forward and as we transition, back to this new normal as well. I think that's something that's.
Hey, Jamie, I have one last question for you. So what do you see a year? It's a year from now. Like what will be different? What will the world be like? A year from now, as far as you see medically.
I say better. I have seen some of the medical systems and rules and things like that are archaic. You try and change something in the system, it's like government. It takes forever. And the system has responded so rapidly and so substantially. CMS, Center for Medicaid Services, they were changing rules before, for example, before somebody had to be admitted to a hospital, sit there for 3 days before they were allowed to be placed in a nursing home. We kind of didn't always think that rule was necessary, but whatever. As soon as this happened, boom, change the rule. If they're safe to go to a nursing home, change. So the adaptability in the medical system and how quickly we're willing to work with this, studies to help study these medications are being approved in still a very safe fashion, but instead of the usual weeks and months that the IRB would review stuff, we're looking at it quickly. Is it ethical? Is it safe? Is this appropriate as a thing? And we're moving so much faster. Your office practice shut down. How quickly can you get on a telehealth because your patients still need you? And so, I mean, a year from now, all of the benefits of this, how we've learned how to change and respond to such rapidly changing conditions, we're going to be able to apply to any threat that comes our way. And we are going to be we're going to be awesome. So I see a world where we're going through a rough period, but that things are better on the other side of this.
That's beautiful. Well, Dr. Jamie, we sure appreciate everything that you do for our community, everything you do for the Detroit community and for the world. Your just your whole vibe is so positive, upbeat, and I would not want to end up on an ER table, but if I was on, you're just not the normal doctor. So,
Tim, I've actually had people ask me if Dr. Hope is a fake name.
Yeah,
it is actually. My birth certificate says Jaime Hope, and the degree on my wall says doctor. So I promise, this is real.
That's beautiful. Well, Hector, you got anything?
No. There's never been a more fitting name for this, and I think that this call, could have been a very grim call, but it was actually quite the opposite. And I think you brought a lot of hope, a lot of energy, and some great tips and strategy as well. One thing, Jamie, that we didn't talk about is if people want to stay connected. I know Joe asked about, if there will be a follow-up on this topic in a week or two. We will be here every Monday. Dr. Jaime Hope will be fighting on the front lines, but if they want to stay connected with you or follow you on social or wherever it is, where's the best place to do that?
Sure. So I'm happy to get on as many calls. I don't want to hog it because I know there are so many amazing experts that are coming on One Life. But of course, I'm always willing to come back. On Twitter and Twitter, it's Dr. Hope Health. And that's also my website, drhopehealth.com, drhopehealth.com. Twitter, I tend to focus a little bit more on the med ed for medical providers, but I certainly love, tweeting with people about anything. I'm a little lame on Instagram. I'm still working, but I can only do so many social platforms because there's only so much time in the day. On Facebook, it's just my actual name, Jaime Hope. I think there's a picture of me in a fancy dress back when we used to get to go out and mingle with people as my profile. And then I have a private Facebook group that's named after my book, which is where I talk about healthy habits and keeping goals and stuff like that. And it's called the Habit That Tribe. And you can search it that way. And that's a forum so people can connect and ask me questions. And I always just say, practice a little bit of kindness because I also, work. And so I try and get to them as quick as I can. But that's a place where people who are trying to work on habits, whether it's, business, finance, or their health, can help support each other and stay on track and ask questions. So.
Wonderful. Well, I just dropped the link to your group in the chat as well. And thanks.
And it's free and I don't sell anything. So it's all about connection and community. So.
All right. Wonderful. Next week on our Mastery Monday, I think it should be, well, we're going to have a surprise guest, I think is what it's looking like right now. So we'll make some announcements on that as well. But the same time, Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you guys later.